Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits, or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody, to another brand new episode 72 of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This is our penultimate recording session. Will, you can Google that later.
That's 4 syllables. That's too much for me.
For the summer, second to last. So we'll record this. We'll record Ann Jones next week, and then no more recording until after Labor Day with Pete. Grep Beat Pete.
That's right. Grep Beat Pete.
And he had news. Well, we'll just say it because it's out, and this won't be on the air till forever. Pete is leaving Grep Beat, and he's going to pursue his stand-up comedy career. So that's awesome. Do you know Pete, Brian?
No, who he is. Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. So that's what we got. Positive. Oh, look at me. Look how nice I'm dressed today.
You are very dapper. What's up?
We have the City Club Raleigh Business Expo tonight.
You going to put a tie on?
No, these buttons don't close. Are you kidding me?
You snipped it off. You're like, nope.
No tie. Yeah, so that's what I got. What did you bring in the show to help move us along?
Well, I changed my location in my office today.
That helps.
I got a lot of glare from the windows, and so apparently I look cranky. So I brought that to the show. I brought extra crank.
Oh, my. Oh, it's going to be a good one. I'm John Lane.
Prepared. I'm grouchy.
And you're grouchy? Yeah. And we are a work in progress. Hooray. We got through the introduction. I know that when we get through the introduction that we finished 99% of our podcast. So that's good. That is the
hardest part.
And we
lose most of our watchers and listeners is on the beginning.
That's true.
They hang on for Brian.
So hanging on for Brian. So Brian is our special guest. Will, how do we know he's special?
Because the slide says so.
And what do we know about slides?
Slides don't lie.
They do not lie. Even when
the information on them is inaccurate. Sure. If it's on the slide, it must be
Slides
true.
Don't lie. If it's on a slide, it's true. Brian.
It's all facts.
Welcome. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello. Well, my name is Brian Jew, and you guys did not tell me that I was going to be the penultimate episode, because that is pressure. Because if we think back on all those great TV shows, it's usually that episode that's the most exciting. Game of Thrones, for one, every season, right? You know?
Yeah. And it's this last season, the cliffhanger, that's always like, wah, wah, wah. Yeah, so you're bringing us home. We appreciate it.
All right, baby.
Besides the pressure, tell folks what you do.
Well, Stony Hill Advisors, I am the COO of, and we are a mergers and acquisitions
Wait, you're the
firm.
COO? I thought you were the CEO.
I am not.
Who's the CEO?
Roy Salisbury.
Oh, that's something.
Yes.
That's news to me. You learn something new every day.
Well, that's one thing about our organization is actually everybody in our C-suite has been a CEO, and not just a CEO, but a CEO of a publicly traded company.
Interesting.
And one of the things that is very important to us is and this is going to be hard for a lot of people to believe, but we actually subjugate our egos for the better of the team and the better of our client and everything else. So we do M&A advisory and basically help people get to their exit, whether that's selling their business, finding a larger corporation or company to merge into, or even going public, the IPO process. And we have experience in all those areas. And to get there, we also have management consulting services, and we also offer a specialized coaching services. So not like a general executive coach, but we work with other executive coaches to help in a particular specialty, and whether that's raising capital, whether that's the developing an M&A strategy, or also, just driving revenue specifically. So we do a little bit of all of it because we want to capture the client. We want to do what's best for the client. And that, if that includes working with great people such as yourselves, we're going to do all of the above to do what's best for the client. That's and if awesome. That means us not there, that means us not there. But that's what it's all about. Because if we do what's best for the client, then we should do all too.
Awesome. Love hearing that. That's the most thorough explanation of Stony Hill I've heard, so I appreciate it. It was worth me showing up, I think, just for that. All right. So let us get into our good stuff here. Yes. And we're going to start talking about leadership traits under stress. We get that information from where?
The OAD Assessment.
Yes, we do.
And it is our tool for unlocking and defining your unique superpowers. Highly accurate, easy to administer. Brian, I'm sure you experienced it. Was brief. Eliminates social desirability distortion, so there's no multiple choice true, false, yes, no. And then it's built to the standards of leading international psychological institutions and rating agencies. Those logos are beautifully placed along the bottom of our slide here. Tells you that the information can be trusted. It is statistically and scientifically tested and proven.
And let me give you a compliment, Will. Last week you said those logos that were strewn across the bottom, which I took offense to.
You did.
Because I did noticed. A nice job of putting the slide together. You described it as strewn. You self-corrected.
I did.
You're growing up.
One show at a time. Can't promise I won't go backwards in some other aspect of the show later.
Nothing goes up straight up or right. Okay, let's now talk a little bit about how we introduce OAD to people. We use the leadership style matrix, and that is a 4-quadrant rubric that allows us to break people into generalists and specialists, as well as socially oriented and technically oriented. I am a socially oriented generalist in the builder quadrant. I'm a negotiator. Will is a
technically oriented generalist. So I'm in the architect quadrant, and I'm a developer.
Correct, you are. And we have the generalists in common, but we differ on the socially oriented. I'm nice, optimistic, smiling guy, and Will is the model for the grouch.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm mean, pessimistic,
Oscar the Grouch.
Generally unpleasant to be around.
Absolutely. And Brian, you are a socially oriented generalist in the builder quadrant, and I forget which one you are, but we're going to find out in a minute.
Look, there you go. Negotiator. Brian, how does it feel, my friend, to be reduced to a 2-dimensional data table?
Well, if it was inaccurate, I would have a problem with it, but it's pretty accurate. I look at it as a compliment. How's that? I think it's a compliment.
We like it. So
look how tightly
yes,
compressed together that readout is.
Yeah, that is a tight spread. So let's just break it down. So we look at the relative traits, assertiveness, extroversion, patience, detail orientation. Brian's most dominant trait is his extroversion. He's a people person. He's warm, he's open, he's social, he's optimistic. We then look at his E, and his E is also a dominant trait. That means he's a good communicator, persuasive. He's also a generalist, which means he's venturesome and risk taker. He'll delegate anything he can get his hands on, especially if you think somebody can do it better than him or just do it for him. And this is a pretty classic negotiator trait. It's very tight, which means it's a clean read, but there's not a big spread of intensity. But here's the thing I find interesting about Brian's profile is his VL is a 58. So average is 30, high is 40, extra high is 50. It's on a 60-point scale. So you are redlining the scale. which means that you are an incredibly versatile person. Okay? It also means under pressure, you can come off like a chameleon. Every one of our strengths has a flip side to it. His EC, his emotional control, how he makes decisions, heart and head, we like to shorthand it as. Believe it or not, you are you make your decisions through empathy and feelings. You have a gut reaction to things, and that's how you make your decisions. And you're also super creative, right? CR gives us some insight into how a person tackles a solution. So somebody with a low score is going to read the manual or watch a video. Somebody with a higher score is comfortable not doing that. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say this about myself. The next manual I read, I'm also a 10, is the first manual I'll read. Is that something you up to?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I figured. Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's you. Now let's get into what does that mean? We'll do superpowers and then we'll do kryptonite. Will?
Rolling into this slide, I do want to say I don't know that I've ever seen a VL or a versatility level at 58 on any of our scores. So that amount of versatility and that amount of creativity, really, really impressive. So when anyone takes the OAD assessment, Brian, if they're going to land in the builder negotiator quadrant, there's going to be some system generated results. These are yours. So they're going to be similar to those others we'll see in the builder negotiator quadrant. These are not the ones you custom did. We're going to get to that in a moment. So let's just single click here. Is there one of these that stands out to you as your own perception of most accurate, or that other people have said to you, hey, this is you? It's one of those leap off the page.
Yeah, they all do resonate. But maybe because it's at that top, the first one, does. I have heard that. I have heard that more than once in my life and career. And, so sure. Yes.
Energetic and persuasive. Agreed.
All right.
Kryptonite side, John.
Boom, boom, boom. This is my favorite way that the system says casual with detail and follow through.
Yeah, Brian, which one of these you think?
The top one for sure.
Do you remember that email I sent I had a meeting with Jeff and I wrote out a whole bunch of stuff about how we could work together and this and that. I sent it off. I did not get a response from anyone for like a week. And then I think I sent I replied all and I wrote question mark. Because steam was coming out of my head. I did all the fucking work, and all they have to do is read the email and tell me what they think. And then you wrote back something like, patience is a virtue. And I was looking for, remember that scene in Animal House where the guy was grabbing the teddy bear and punching it? Throw me a little sugar, please. But I knew it was, that's what Brian would do. So I got a kick out of that.
Well, that's one of the reasons that we do this, right? And is to help understand one another's, personality defaults and communication styles. And you knew
100%.
That was not out of character for Brian.
No, it was not. All right. We're breaking the mold a little bit, and we've got an eye chart for our audience, but I think you'll see why we made the decision to keep this as is. Sorry, everybody. But there's too much good info in here.
Those who follow the show know that we typically do an abbreviated superpower slide and then a kryptonite slide that are the results of the feedback from our guests when they're working with John pre-show. John really did not want to cut down what Brian put together because it was so well penned. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this slide. Brian, when you were looking at your results and thinking and processing on yourself, this is what you chose to communicate. Can you walk us and our audience through kind of why you wrote what you wrote and what you're trying to convey, what you gathered from the results of this assessment?
Sure, absolutely. I will say, Will, I'm going to add one thing before I start there. And I've told this to John before, but when Jeff Miller told me hey, you got to do this. You got to do this. I think this could be great, a great tool, so on and so forth. I said, I agree. I can see this being a fantastic tool for our clients and everything else. Absolutely. But I was a bit dismissive about, is it really good? Does it really work? Is it going to be accurate? Because I've done some of these things before and I didn't agree with them. But when I saw the results, I was flabbergasted. I was blown away. And I said, you guys got it spot on. This one works because holy crap, this is me. And I did reflect quite a bit. I took this seriously. So I do want to say that when I went through the assessment, I took it very seriously. I was very thoughtful and thorough, not about, what I thought the answer should be or what you're looking for or anything like that, but about me, and was trying, because I thought, hey, this is a great opportunity to maybe learn something about myself. And that's what happened. And so when I saw these results and John, when you explained them to me, it made a lot of sense. So when I delved into this part of the exercise, I did think thoroughly about it, and I really did put some reflection into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and before we move on, and I do want you to walk us through this slide where
Sure.
you're surprised about the accuracy balanced against the brevity. Because usually you would think longer and more complex means more accurate results. But actually, in the case of this assessment, which is one of the reasons John and I have aligned with it, is the beautiful balance of the brevity and the accuracy that come together.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I think there's others that they're too long, and so by the time you start going through it, you're just checking boxes or answering because you just want to get through it because
fatigue.
It's too long. Right. Or, when they ask when the questions are repetitive, it's the same thing as, when you're in one of those, God forbid, old school corporate meetings going around the room and then someone, halfway through reiterates what someone at the beginning already said and you just want to kill them. Yeah. There's a lot of assessments like that, it's just too long. So the fact that you guys were the OAD is as quick as it is to go through it and as accurate, yeah, absolutely was, and it made me think. And to be honest with you, I know the examples I cited were a little old, but I forgot about them. I'm not one of these guys that, you guys remember Glenn Ross, the description of the old guys at the bar thinking about, the deal I missed out on and all that. I'm not that guy. And these two transactions that I mentioned actually weren't as prevalent as a few others that I have that do stick with me all the time. Like having the opportunity to be near, eBay at the beginning. Oops. Right. But these two I had actually forgot about, but what made me think about them was the assessment, without it, because I started thinking about, I do have a skill set that in regards to speaking and engaging and being able to take over a room, so forth. And I had an opportunity early in my career from the same group that really helped spearhead the careers of some people that we all know that are common names. And they invited me to a convention at Javits Center in New York to be able to, present. And they gave me what they wanted me to talk about. Number one, I didn't like the content. So that was tough. And then the second thing is I thought, well, maybe I'll do it. And I asked how much everyone's getting paid. And when they told me what the two headliners were getting was like 80 grand and 100 grand to speak, right? And I said, well, what am I going to get? And they said, well, we'll fly you out and we'll pay for your hotel. And I was hoping for maybe at least 10 grand or something like that. Something. Nope. Then I said, well, I have first class at least. They said, no, you can upgrade. And I'm, right. So I didn't do it. But what they wanted me to do was to speak about China. And this was right at the beginning where, you had basically China was becoming, a little bit more of a capital power as we see them now, right?
Yeah.
And getting away from just, low, cheap product manufacturing. And they wanted me to speak about, China and being an expert on it. And I thought, how could I? I've never been there. I'm a third generation American. I can't speak a lick of Chinese. I almost, I tried to take it in college for my language and get through. I had no idea about it, but they wanted me to be that guy. And I didn't do it. And maybe I should have, because the person that they did pick up actually ended up becoming a talking head on, CNN, CNBC, and the circuit. And, could have been me.
Sliding doors. Yeah.
So, but it just wasn't, I just couldn't do something where that would have been so completely inauthentic, and it just wasn't me, so.
And the assessment led you to think about that again.
It did. And then the other one that it made me think about too was the other one where I was sitting with someone who was younger at the time. He was well known simply because of his family background, a lot of money, no question about it. And, he wanted to make a dent in Hollywood, and had already produced some movies that didn't do so well, didn't make budget, things like that. And I had to sit down, at a really nice restaurant in the Manhattan Beach, and I had the opportunity to be part of that team. That was something that he wanted to build. And I think on one hand, I let my some of my insecurities take over, some of my doubt. I was trying too hard to prove myself in the meeting, and I just didn't handle it correctly. Something that now with wisdom, I would understand better, or if I had understood more about my profile, I would have done better, because I talked like I was trying to compete with everybody in that world. Yeah. And trying to say the things that I thought they wanted to hear. Whereas what I should have done is I should have been creative. I should have been me. I should have used my skills at, creative structure, thought process, and all of those, and let that shine. And I'm not saying I would have got hired or I would have been offered a part with that team, but
you would have approached differently.
I know they were thinking about me heavily. And that is one of those things where, my life would have been significantly different. I don't know if it would have been for the better or anything like that, but it would have been different. And it was an opportunity where, that some people think about, where, hey, being catapulted into a different stratosphere when it comes to business and all that.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful segue, Brian. It's precisely, why we go through this assessment, why we have leaders come on and self-reflect. This brought up some memories for you, brought up some experiences, things that you may have handled differently if you knew yourself better. You've taken some assessments that you didn't love. You've enjoyed this one. We've gone through this exercise together today. You're trying to do a lot with Stony Hill right now in a very compressed and accelerated period of time. Yeah. How do you take the results of this assessment and the self-analysis that you're doing and apply that to all the leadership responsibilities that you have as it relates to, what you're trying to do professionally today? How do you benefit from this and carry it forward?
I think it really truly allows me to look at what I've already implemented some of this stuff since this assessment is I am focusing on what I do best. And some of the things that I was being a little bit more of a perfectionist on, I have delegated. I have some of the areas that I took very personally. I said, well, look, we've got a great team. Because we have a heck of a team, and let's use it. And I think this assessment's really helped me figure out not just myself, but having an idea. And even though not everybody's gone through the assessment, studying it and learning about what you guys do, I can pretty much guess what a lot of the people on our team
You can start to see it.
what their profiles are like, and even without them knowing it, helping them be better at what they do.
So, Brian, one of the things we do, and I always, when I do workshops, I have a couple of slides on this, but I show a dartboard with 3 darts right in the bullseye, and then I go forward and I put an X through that. I say the purpose of this assessment is not to get everything perfectly right. Now, sometimes it lands right in the bullseye, like you're saying it did, and that's great. But the real purpose is to take a team and give them a common experience, a common framework, and a common language to understand each other, to communicate more effectively with each other, and even outside of the group. So it doesn't have to be that bullseye. And so that's what I like about this, because you watch a team meeting after everyone's done this, and you see people responding to what they know about the other, rather than just in their heads, like, oh, I want to get all this information out. And that's not how their colleagues will communicate well. So now they're starting to adapt. It's really a beautiful thing.
I know. It's that moment where we come to the end. Brian, there's someone that you can think of that you interact with professionally or otherwise, that would be a great guest on this, would participate, enjoy it, benefit from it. Any who's next suggestions for us, people we can, or a person we can speak to about coming aboard the show?
Dan Lavelle.
Who?
Dan Lavelle.
Dan Lavelle. Dan, we're coming at you.
Oh, we sure are. We'll be in your yard very soon.
I'll follow up with you after the show, Brian, for how we communicate with them. But this is hard to believe, but we've been looking forward to this for, I think, a couple of months now.
Yes.
And we appreciate you being on the show. We're thankful for that. We're taking the summer off, so your episode will come out in the fall, but we'll promote it like crazy. And by then we'll be working together, I'm sure. So let's see if I was prescient or not. Thank you, everybody. I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield.
We are all a work in progress.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Prescient.
Thank you both, gentlemen.
Captain Vocab today.
Great.
Wow.
Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions. Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.